Should the Yankees be sellers at the trade deadline? Who are Fred Zinkie's top 3 second half sleepers? That and more coming up on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie, and we have a lot to cover today. Lots of baseball to talk. I'm always happy to talk baseball with Fred. Fred, how are you?
I'm great. It's a little earlier in the day than we usually get at it, but I was excited to get started earlier.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah. A little more energy. Maybe That's a different crowd. We love our regular crowd, but maybe add a few more here. Perhaps we'll see. Let's jump right into it here. The New York Yankees lost last night on a walk-off hit against Michael Stefanik. They are now 50-45, which is not bad, but they're 9 games out in the AL East. That's last place in the AL East. Tough division. They are also 2.5 games out in the wild card. Too early to write them off, but this is a team that's struggling right now. They're a little old and slow, and Aaron Judge's return is nowhere in sight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a bleak roster when you look at it right now without Judge, and even putting Judge in it, obviously helps a ton. But yeah, when you just I just happen to have their FanGraphs depth chart right here and has the ages beside them, Stanton 33, Rizzo 33, LeMahieu 35. Let's see here. We go a little further down the list. Both catchers are over 30. Yeah, it's just a bit of Carlos Rodon's a sneaky 30 years old, which I guess isn't super old for a pitcher, but Garrett Cole's almost 33.
LeMahieu's 35 going on 45 too.
Yeah, that's it. It's also some older players where Anthony Rizzo, doesn't look good this year, and he's 30, almost 34. LeMahieu, like you said, is looks 35 going on 45. Giancarlo Stanton is almost 34 with a long list of injuries. Yeah, it's a bit of a Josh Donaldson. I mentioned it in our notes. Has Josh Donaldson played his last major league game?
He's probably played his last game as a Yankee.
He's not sure if he's going to get back this year. I don't see any reason why a team would bring Josh Donaldson in as a free agent.
Yeah. Tell me, do you know when Anthony Rizzo hit his last home run?
Oh, he's on my Yahoo Friends and Family team, and that team stinks. I'm gonna say a month ago.
Keep going.
No way.
May 20th.
Wow. I wouldn't have got
2 months ago.
So that's the only team I have him on, and I've kind of given up on. But yeah, when you look at his, how about that? His June numbers: 22 games, so he's healthy. He's playing. 173 batting average, no homers. This month, 143.
If Rizzo's not hitting for power, what is he there for? What are we doing even?
Yeah. To catch everyone up, in our notes I raised the concept that, and I get that if the Yankees were in the AL Central or the NL Central, they might as well they'd probably win the division. But in this division, with the wild cards available and the fact that I think Boston is better than them. Boston is a better roster, I think, right now than they do. Toronto.
You need the Yankees pitching, and the Yankees need the Red Sox hitting, basically.
Yep. Although I just feel like Boston's done an okay job piecing together that pitching. Nick Pivetta did really well last night. They've got Paxton's been a surprise. Bayo's been a surprise. Cutter Crawford has seems to have a lot of potential. I know that their pitching isn't perfect, but I could see it's a solid lineup. I could see the Red Sox, if they want to try to compete, add just a mid-level starter or something at the deadline. And I don't know, they look closer than the Yankees. The Yankees lineup just looks so slow and stodgy. I don't know.
Well, and the young guys aren't doing it. That's the problem too.
Yep.
The guys they got to be the next generation. I mean, Volpe, Volpe has actually had his moments. He has 13 homers. He has 16 stolen bases, but he's also hitting 208 with the 281 on base. The 281 on base is just a killer. I mean, and he does take some walks, but I guess that both the average and the on base are killers, I suppose, if you think about it that way. Oswaldo Cabrera is, they're expecting him to be a full-time starter. Instead, he's now a part-time player. He's hitting 212, 271, 317. no power or average. I mean, that's a killer. Oswald Peraza's got the call back up, but is he going to play much? He did start yesterday, got on base 5 times. Might have been a mistake to cut him in some leagues, or it should be like a priority to go get him perhaps now, even though he is hitting 235 and slugging 265, but he also has barely played with the Yanks. But at AAA Scranton, he wasn't doing all that well initially, but if you look at his overall totals, 847 OPS.
Yeah, so Peraza, I think from a fantasy perspective, profiles as someone who's interesting because he's just got that power speed combo where you could, if he played regularly the rest of the way, you could see him maybe getting, I don't know, say like 7 homers and 9 steals, 10 steals, something like that, like something interesting over a couple months. But it shows this, but it shows the state of the Yankees lineup that he hit leadoff in his first game back, and he's a 260 hitter in the minors. So like this shows just kind of how desperate they are for a spark, and it worked. Like he got on base 5 times. He did everything he could to help them win. They do have some guys like Stanton's played all right lately. Like Gleyber Torres is having a good year. I don't know. It's just not enough for me. And then you mentioned, when I mentioned them selling, you said like, who's buying any of these players, which I think is a really good point. I don't know. I don't think you get much of note for any of these guys. You could get something for Harrison Bader if you want to.
Yeah, if you catch his healthy window. I mean, that's just the problem with Bader is, I mean, it's been so many times. I mean, it's the pitching that you could trade for a little bit there. Uncle Ted posted about bet the Yankees wish they didn't trade away Ezekiel Duran to the Rangers. That was the lovely, lovely Joey Gallo trade. And Joely Rodriguez, what was your favorite Joely Rodriguez moment with the Yankees there? You'd have to dig a little deep on that, but it wasn't great. Let's just put it that way there. Actually, he was actually fine with the Yanks. I take that back. He had a 2.84 ERA. He was fine, but they didn't hold on to him. So yeah, tough look for the Yanks right now. Looking at their depth chart, they need the young guys to step up. And it's the offense all season. The fact that they can't develop outfielders is just vexing. Jake Bowers and Billy McKinney, they're playing Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in the outfield, which as an outfielder, he's a good shortstop. He's not a corner outfielder. He just isn't. You can't suffice with that. But Billy McKinney and Willie Calhoun and Jake Bowers and just Franchi Cordero. The fact is, none of these young guys have developed, and they also, Jason Dominguez is taking his time. He's 20, so hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. But still, they were expecting more from these guys, and then losing Judge on top of that is just a killer.
Yeah, and I mean I guess there is at least a scenario where they pitch their way into the playoffs. I just don't see it happening in this tough group in the AL East. I don't see anyone being able to, other than the AL Central champion, like anyone else being able to go, ass backwards into the playoffs. Like I think you're going to have to earn it in the AL this year in those wild card spots. And like their Yankees are 22nd in baseball in OPS. Which basically they have the AL Central teams cushioning their fall. If it wasn't for Oakland and the AL Central teams, everyone else in the American League is, Seattle's 1 spot behind them. Anyways, they just don't profile as an offense that can catch fire. And I guess they do have some guys like Rizzo who are massively underperforming. It just seems unlikely that they'll all turn it around.
Yeah, I think the last time I complained about the Yankees offense, they scored 13 runs the next game. So I wonder if that'll still happen. But regardless,
DFS tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Stack them against the Angels, perhaps. There you go. But in fact, who is this? What is the pitching matchup in that one? It is Patrick Sandoval and Domingo Germán. Sandoval. I mean, Sandoval's one of my disappointments this year. 4-7, 4.41 ERA. And the Ks I kind of expected, at least I'll get the Ks, 70 Ks in 85 innings. He has definitely been a big disappointment, a big underperformer from expectation. Maybe I should have seen it coming. I don't know. Fastball is down a little bit. Swing and miss is down, and it's kind of started trending down last year, but it was still pretty good last year at 13.5. It's down to 12.2 this year. K percentage, though, has dropped through the floors. 23.7 last year, 18.2 this year.
Yeah, it's the lack of strikeouts. Like that's what's pivoted him. If there is a lesson to be learned, it's probably that, high whip pitchers have very little margin for error. Like throughout his career, like going into this season, his whips by season: 137, 134, 121, 134. That's really bad. Like a career whip over 1.3 going into this season. He had always been able to, kind of work around that by having a solid strikeout rate. He doesn't give up a lot of home runs. But you can see where when the strikeout rate goes down a little bit, all of a sudden, he was already a high whip pitcher. Now he's killing your whip. 147 from a starter is like, that's a heavy weight on your whip to try to work that off.
I'm going to name this pitcher. I think there's still hope for Sandoval. I mean, I don't think Sandoval is at the level of this pitcher. I'm giving you a little spoiler alert here, but his whips throughout his career: age 24 rookie season, 107, 122 the next year, 114, 123, 136, 108, 103. And this guy in the last 5 years has regularly been drafted high. Who is this pitcher?
I'm going to guess Luis Castillo.
Bingo! Dang, I'm so impressed. That was awesome.
Well, the reason I got him right away is I used to write a lot of "be careful of Luis Castillo" because he'll kill your whip. And it's not actually, I wouldn't say that. That's exaggerative. He wouldn't kill your whip. It was, why are you taking a pitcher in round 2? This was something I would write a couple years ago. Why are you taking a pitcher in round 2 who's going to hurt your whip or not help your whip?
Yeah. I've made that point.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the time when I was making that argument, let's say, kind of like 2021 drafts, things like that, I was saying his team stinks. He's in a bad ballpark and he hurts your whip. Like, what are we chasing here in like round 2 or 3 with Luis Castillo? Now, I have some Luis Castillo this year. To me, it was a very different picture of Luis Castillo. Once he started showing some signs he could bring his whip down the last couple of years, and he got out of Cincinnati.
Yeah. Ironically, now Cincinnati's got a better record than Seattle, which is funny. But then again, they play in the NL Central, which is not a good division to say the least. It's kind of funny how that it can sometimes correct. But I used to make that point all the time that I wouldn't be on Castillo either. There.
No.
Meanwhile, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just to put a bow on Castillo. I was gonna say, one of my theories has always been with your early round pitchers to look for whip and strikeout rate. Like if the whips looks helpful, like, because ERA is going to move around, right? You're going to have, inherited runners and all these other things. But so ERA is going to go up and down, which we've seen with Castillo. And you go back and look at Sandoval's page, same thing. But if you can get a pitcher, if you're taking a pitcher in the early rounds, you should believe that the strikeout rate is going to be excellent and the whip is going to be excellent. And then cross your fingers on the wins. Cross your fingers on the ERA. So Castillo, for me, just didn't check one of the two boxes. And I think in the early rounds for a pitcher, you got to be able to check both boxes. Where Sandoval was going, you can just check one box and you can maybe cross your fingers on the other one.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Yeah.
Tying this all back to the Yankees. So trying to find who they could trade if they do trade away. And, I think it might be hard to sell that. Hard to get the Yankees to do that, but I mean, I think they kind of need to. But then again, like we said, I think short of trading, I mean, who's trading for Luis Severino right now? Maybe our Reds.
No one's giving like max value for him.
Right. You're not going to get a stud. You're not going to get a stud prospect for him. That's the real problem for the Yankees. Gleyber Torres could have some currency. That's someone who they should really trade and just play Peraza on a regular basis. Torres has some value. He's not 35. He's 26. He's still got time to be a solid productive player. He is productive. A 750 OPS. He's not a star. I think 2019 Happy Fun Ball year, we all got super excited about him and all that. And then he's now gone 4 straight years with being below 800 OPS. But as a rookie, he was 820. Year 2, Happy Fun Ball, 872. I think what we're looking at right now is his level. That plays, but not maybe as much as one would think.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at other Yankees that you could trade. Could you trade Domingo Germán? I don't know what you get for him, but he's got 2 more years after this one for free agency. Like that could be appealing to some teams that just want to add a starter without a massive...
I think there's some squeamishness in trading for Germán.
I agree. That's what I think too. I agree. There's just been so many cheating related things with him. And
I
the
wasn't
Yankees,
thinking cheating. I was thinking about the domestic violence too.
I was thinking, you're right. You're right. That's a big deal too. But I was
I
thinking
think that does. I think unless you're the White Sox, most teams actually care about PR a little bit. So I mean, I don't think that. I think he'd be hard. I mean, I think you could trade the relievers, but again, the return will be not massive. But Peralta, King, Holmes, Canley, any of those guys you could trade.
Yep. Yeah,
But
maybe that's a way to do it. Because they're in tough, like beyond this year. Like Baltimore, holy smokes! Like Baltimore is on the rise.
yeah,
Like they are not going anywhere.
the
Tampa
Rays aren't going away.
they never go anywhere. The Blue Jays, unless they do something odd, they aren't going anywhere. Like until for a few more years, until Vladdy and Bichette and those guys hit free agency. We'll see what the Blue Jays decide to do long term, who they lock up, who they don't, whatever. But that core is together for a couple more years. So that should be a team with a winning record. And Boston, I don't know if Boston's fully turned the corner yet, but I don't think Boston's going way down or anything anytime soon. And they could go up a bit. So I think New York's in a tough spot. And I know Yankees fans don't want to hear that. And someone tweeted at me, I tweeted out an article over the All-Star break that they were going to miss the playoffs. And someone said something to me like, the Yankees have a permanent ticket or something like that, punch for the playoffs every year in April. Don't you know that? Something like that. Like some Yankees fan was just like, we're the Yankees. We don't want to hear, I don't want to hear it. But which, hey, maybe they'll rally and make it. But if you took this roster and put them in any other set of jerseys and put them in exactly where they are in the standings, you would say, I think you would conclude that there's no way they're highly unlikely to make the playoffs.
Are the AL East standings in inverse order of payroll right now? Rays, Orioles, Jays, Red Sox, Yankees? Or do the Jays outpace the Red Sox?
Yeah, the Jays might be paying I haven't looked, but they might be paying more than the Red Sox this year.
And Rays versus Orioles is close too.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny. It's also the AL East standings perfectly mirror the run differential. Rays, although not perfectly mirror because the Rays are 100 runs better than the Orioles in terms of run differential. Only one game in the standings, but 151, 51, 44, 39, 16. I mean, that's the thing is all are in the positive. I mean, the worst team in the division still 5 games over 500. Keep that in mind. I mean, that's pretty wild to say the least. If you look at like in the division, we know the Jays have been wrecked by their own division. They're 7-20. If they hadn't played in any other division, I mean, we'd be talking about them as an elite team. But they're 7-20 against the East. The Yankees are 13-17 against the East. So they've struggled in division. They've already played 30 of their divisional games, so there is that. They still have 20. It still means they have 22 left, but they've played more divisional games than anybody else in the AL East right now.
Yeah, they would need probably 2 teams to just fully collapse out of either 2 in their division or Houston or Texas. And by the way, speaking of the AL East, it's fascinating that the Rays have almost coughed up that division lead.
I know.
The Orioles are now 1 game behind them. Even the Jays at 5.5, like 5.5, you don't catch the Rays in a week or 2, but the Jays and the Jays haven't played phenomenal baseball or anything. Like they're not bad in their last 10, but overall. But the Rays, so which kind of shows the Rays have come back to the pack here, like 5.5 for the Jays. They probably won't catch the Rays, but that's not bad for the middle of July. You could have that whittled down, by August 1st, maybe
for sure.
3 games, something like that. Yeah, the Rays have really, really come back down to earth, which I think people expected.
Yeah, big week for the Rays too. They lost yesterday at Texas, 2 more there, and then 4 home games against the O's. They could be in second.
They could lose the division lead this week.
Yeah, they could. And then they get 2 games against the Marlins at home next week, and then 3 more games at Houston, and then at the Yankees after that. So the schedule is legit for the Rays coming up right now.
Yeah, and if Baltimore passes them, I look at Baltimore's roster, and it's exciting and it's young, but I look at that pitching staff, and I'm just like, really? That's going to be the pitching staff of the number 1 seed in the American League?
Well, yeah, Rays do need starters, as Ted mentions. Yes, they do.
Rays need starters, but Baltimore also probably needs starters if they're actually thinking.
Both of these teams, and in the playoffs too. I mean, which of these are at least the Rays have McClanahan.
Yes.
Is it Tyler Wells? Is he the O's ace, or is it
Kyle Bradish?
Yeah, Kyle Bradish. Yeah. Well, and there's another possibility later on. We should talk about that, and that's Grayson Rodriguez, who made his return yesterday against the Dodgers. Overall line's not great, but I was reading I watched the start. I was reading Nick Pollock from Pitcher List afterward, talking about him, talking about Grayson Rodriguez. He hit 101 and he was throwing harder than before. His stuff looked better. It's just the Dodgers lay off of stuff better. He wasn't getting a lot of swings and misses on his fastball. Against other teams, that'll still play, but unfortunately, Grayson gets the Rays in his next start.
Yeah, so the jury may have to stay out for a little while longer on Grayson Rodriguez and whether he's, really like I think he's been picked up in every competitive league.
Oh yeah.
But I think the jury may have to be out. His next start after the at Rays is a home to Yankees. So after we just pooped all over the Yankees for all that time, I guess we better at least say that that's a pretty positive, good park to pitch in and the Yankees lineup. So maybe by then, and I mean, against the Rays, like we did say, the Rays are floundering a bit and that lineup's not full of all-stars. So he should be able to have a respectable showing in that start, even if he doesn't dominate. But yeah, I think bringing him back was the right idea. He was doing really well in AAA overall. Cole Irvin's not part of the solution. It's nice that he gave them some respectable starts while they were trying to fill in that spot. But I think it's time. You know what? I think they need to figure out what they have in Rodriguez before the trade deadline.
Yep, I agree.
I think that's what a lot of teams are gauging.
I think obviously, so Grayson Rodriguez is the first of your second half sleepers, by the way. I'm titling it as such, but because I do think now's the time to trade for Grayson Rodriguez. He's not going to be, he didn't have a great start against the Dodgers. His next start's against the Rays. He's going to be an ace someday, and he's going to be very good in good matchups in this second half. I think he's improved since we first saw him. There will be some bumps in the road, but I think he's legit. And I think now is the time to go out and go get him. While you still can get him at a relatively affordable price in redraft. In keeper leagues, you're going to have to pay a mint. That everybody who has Grayson Rodriguez in a keeper or dynasty league values him. And so you're not going to get any discount there.
Yeah. I mean, you raise a good point. If you wanted to kind of like gamble on this one a bit, wait till he faces the Rays. Hope that the Rays, which overall this season has been a very good lineup, hope that the Rays knock him around at least a little bit, and then put your trade offer in on Sunday for him, right? Let him face the Rays. Maybe he does another 5 innings, 4 runs, and now you've got, for whoever picked him up on the weekend or whoever's had him, benched, waiting. Maybe they get two bad starts, and then you swoop in and are like, whatever. I'll give this kid a shot. I'll give you something for him, and maybe you can pick him up on the cheap before he has that start against the Yankees.
Yeah. I like it there.
Yeah, just trying to play the trade market a little bit like the stock market, and maybe you gamble, you don't make the offer for him now, you wait till the weekend. Yeah,
I think that's smart. Yeah. That's the route I'd go. I mean, the O's they do need another starting pitcher, right? They have to go get one at the trade deadline, and I think although everybody needs one.
Yep.
We can't all get Lucas Giolito and Lance Lynn. We maybe Jordan Montgomery, or he'll come parachuting in or something like that. But the supply is not abundant, to say the least.
No, I mean, well, it'll depend on what certain teams decide. Like you said, there's there's Giolito for sure. You mentioned Lance Lynn. There's Lance Lynn, Jordan Montgomery for sure. And then we're talking about, are the Padres sticking around in the race? Or is Blake Snell potentially available? Are the Mets going to stick around in the race, or are any of their veterans available? The Cubs, are they going to drop out?
Marcus Stroman, there's a name for you.
Maybe Kyle Hendricks, if you want to, who is effective lately. I don't know if you believe in that, but if you're renting him for a couple months, the Tigers, Eduardo Rodriguez, could he be available? Yeah. Michael Lorenzen's had a respectable year.
I don't see the White Sox trading Dylan Cease. I've seen someone suggest that. I don't think they trade him. Unlike Giolito, who's a free agent this year, unlike Lance Lynn, who's old and all that. I mean, Giolito's 29. I know. Well, I mean, I'm looking at Giolito's 29. He should go, but I don't see Cease going. I'm sorry. I do see Giolito going. Cease is 27. He's not a free agent at the end of the year. He has 4.5 years of service, so he's got at least another year. I mean, maybe if the package is overwhelming, but he's so cheap too. I mean, he's on a $5.7 million contract this year. I think he's got 2 more arbitrations still left. If I'm the White Sox, I have to be just absolutely gobsmacked by an offer. We're talking like the, maybe not the Nats for Soto level of an offer, but it's got to be pretty huge before I think about trading Dylan Cease.
I agree. I think so too. And I do think of the White Sox as a team that is not going full rebuild. I think they'll retool, but that division is so weak this year that, and they've had now two, we talked about this last week, like two kind of stinker years in a row where you're just like, the White Sox, like they screw up everything. Like this year, like they should have, in such a lousy division, they should be hanging around, and they're not. But Luis Robert looks like a total star. You keep crossing your fingers that Eloy Jimenez can stay healthy, that guys like Andrew Vaughn, Oscar Colas take another step, that maybe Tim Anderson, who's only 30, gets his act back together. Andrew Benintendi was a stupid signing, but he's at least like
transparently too. Like at the time, like 4 years for this guy.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, like all the players that I just named, and then if they do keep Cease, they still have Kopech. Yeah, they could turn it around next year to be competitive again in a division that I don't think anyone's going to pull away in that division even again next year. I mean, that's really far away for me to say, but there just doesn't seem like a team there like that's just like right on the cusp of being amazing.
Yeah.
So maybe Cleveland, if they fix that offense. I still think Cleveland's just got like a lot of pitching and a lot of young pitchers and prospects. Like maybe if they could fix that offense over a winter.
Shane Bieber is down though. I mean, he's down for, at least, well, not even throwing for 2 weeks. And we're talking maybe, so, and it's an elbow. No surgery is needed now, but he's not even throwing. What if they do the exam 2.5 weeks from now and they find, now we found it. I feel like that scenario is present.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that would, I don't know if that would pack it in for them. They've just, I don't know. At first I was going to say losing Bieber, I don't know how much that really hurts them, but I think it's just piled up now. Quantrill's out. Tristan McKenzie's still
Not
out.
Quantrill. No.
Oh, sorry. Cal Quantrill's out. Yeah. Well, I mean,
McKenzie was a bad one too. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Cal Quantrill isn't good in fantasy because he doesn't strike a lot of people out, but he's still, even with this year stinking and pushing his ERA up, it's still 3.9 in his career. Like every team in baseball would be happy to have a starter with a 3.9.
Yeah. The Reds would love to have Cal Quantrill.
A
league average starter. Yeah. Although
and that 3.9 is heavily impacted by a 5.16 in his rookie year. Like since then, if I just blocked out his first and last year, the middle years, his ERA is probably about 3. So
the Guardians somehow finally found a way to run out of starting pitchers. I mean, they have Savali, Bybee, Gavin Williams, Logan Allen. So they have one non-rookie in there. Bieber's hurt. Quantrill's hurt. Even Battenfield, who got the call up earlier, he's on the 60-day IL. McKenzie's obviously on the 60-day. We kept on like, they got to move him so we can get room for this guy. We got to move him so we got room for this guy. They finally ran out of guys to make room for.
That's right. But that's a team I could see turning it around really fast in the offseason if they could figure out their lineup. Because you figure, like, Shane Bieber's only 28. I thought he was older than that, but like that's one that surprised me a bit because he's been good now for a few years. Tristan McKenzie's only 26. You get those two back next year to go along with all these Gavin Williams, Bybee, Logan Allen, Savali, get Quantrill back. It's a really deep group. And then there are pieces in that lineup. Obviously Jose Ramirez, but there's pieces in that lineup, Naylor, Quan, I think that they can have back. They just have to figure out like 3 or 4 spots in the lineup in the offseason, which feels more achievable than building an entire starting rotation.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're the one team that I think, even if they were to give up on this year and just let Minnesota have it, I think they could find a way to get back in it for next year. No, I don't think they should give up on this year. I think they
did just have a horrible, no good, awful weekend in Texas, lost all 3. That was bad for them. But and by the way, Battenfield is on the 60-day IL, but he's eligible to come off next Tuesday. And it looks like he will come off next Tuesday. So we'll see. I mean, the Guardians are only a game and a half out in the world's worst division, which is somehow worse than the NL Central. We give you the AL Central, which is I mean,
now as a Reds fan, you can stomp your feet and be like, man, I wish we were in the AL Central.
We could peacock all around.
This is so unfair that we're in the NL Central. I wish we were in the AL Central. We'd be doing so much better.
Yeah, the Tigers are 9 games under 500, and yet they're only 5 games out. So they're telling themselves they still have a chance, which, I mean, mathematically they do. Yeah, and I can understand because the Tigers are getting a lot of pitchers back right now. They're getting a lot of players back. They got Riley Green back. They got Erod back recently. They got Scooble back recently. I could see them making a case for not tearing things down, but I mean, Lorenzen's got to be a sell high, right? I mean, there's not a better time to sell him than right now.
Yeah, and I kind of think they should tear it down. Like, well, I don't mean totally tear it down, but I think, yeah, anyone who they think their value is at a high, that could be Eduardo Rodriguez. Like, I know he's got a couple more years on his contract, so maybe you keep Rodriguez. I maybe I'll back off there because I don't think the Tigers are. I think they want to compete as soon as they can. They've been down for a while now, so if they're ready to turn the corner, but like you said, if they can get rid of Lorenzen, like go for it. I don't know if there's much else they can sell though and get.
Erod has got to be an option because of his opt out. Also.
Oh yeah. So maybe he's the other one that they could try to move. Obviously, anyone who can. None of them are bolted to the floor. If anyone wants some of those guys wants Alex Lang or who's not like a great reliever, he's okay. Right. So there's some of those guys they could trade. But you're right. Like they're going to go into the offseason thinking like we're not far off. Same as they're not as close as Cleveland. They're not, but maybe they'll think they are. But they're another team if they could get their offense up a bit. Like their offense this year is really bad. Where are they? 28th in OPS, even worse than Cleveland.
Right.
And they're still hanging around.
Yeah, they've only 4 out of the 5 teams in the AL Central have scored fewer than 400 runs.
Yeah.
Only the Twins haven't, and they're at 406. Yeah. To give you just as a point of comparison, the lowest run scored in the AL East is the Yankees, who we've, kvetched about their offense, and they're at 418 in runs scored, and then it goes up from there. And the Rays are at 522. The Rangers are at 554. So you can see how much higher it can get. Detroit White Sox are like, oh, thank God we're not the Royals. At least Royals. I mean, the Royals are the Royals are low key the worst. I think the worst story in baseball this year. I mean, because the A's everybody knows about, right? Everybody knows that they're moving the franchise. It's straight out of the movie Major League. They've just torn this team down, set it up to fail, and fail indeed they have. The Royals, there was this optimism, new GM, new manager. Brady Singer was so good last year, breakout. 27-68. They're only 2 games better in the 2.5 games better than the A's. They've scored 350 runs, only 6 more than the A's, who are fielding all these AAA guys right now. Their pitching's about 100 runs better than the A's, but it's still bad at 509. I mean, it's short of the A's, and even the Reds are like, wow, the Royals pitching's really bad. The Rockies are at 555, so the Rockies are over there still in the corner eating paste as they usually do. But the Royals, I mean, I expected them to be like competitive with the Tigers and the White Sox and the Guardians, and they're nowhere near that.
No, I agree with you. I think they're the worst franchise. I mean, obviously someone could say the A's are the worst franchise because they're actually like trying to move out of their own city and trying to gut the team to make that happen. But if you're talking about the worst franchises and trying to succeed and failing, I think it's the Royals. Yeah, they're like you said, like their pitching's bottom 2 or 3 in baseball. Their hitting's bottom 2 or 3 in baseball this year. There's their inability to develop pitchers is really remarkable. Like all of these young pitchers that we've looked at in fantasy over the last couple of years, like none of them are turning out. Like Brady Singer and Daniel Lynch and these guys, like none of them are turning out.
Bubich got hurt this year. That was a blow. Yeah. That stunk. But yeah.
And then from a hitting perspective, like what is in that lineup? Bobby Witt is the poster child for better in fantasy than real life baseball player.
Real life is getting better though.
I was about to say, I'm not giving up on him as far as like him being a real life star at some point, but thus far in his career, he has an on base percentage of 296 and is still really, really valuable in fantasy.
Yep.
So he is the poster child for that, where he hits home runs and steals bases, but doesn't get on base. There's Sal Perez and
they lost Vinny Pasquantino too. That's stunk. Olivares is hurt now. He was actually he wasn't very good.
And Pasquantino wasn't exactly tearing the cover off the ball this year.
Melendez isn't hitting for average. and
No.
not really a whole
Like
lot of power.
Pasquantino had a 762 OPS in
Yeah.
61 games. That's not a good OPS for a first baseman. So
And yet, Fred, he's the tops on the team in OPS
yeah,
among regular starters.
yeah.
That
That
is
team is
a
just
damning indictment.
that team is just so far, it seems like, from turning any sort of corner.
And in fact, yeah, I'm looking at the baseball reference page for the Royals. Among anybody who's had more than 6 plate appearances this year, 762 is their best OPS. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so bad. Yeah, that's art. That's just artwork there. So it's not just, not developing starting pitching, it's not developing hitting either. If Perez is hurt right now, Sal Perez is hurt, but with the bad hammy.
Day-to-day right now, yeah.
Day-to-day, but man, they should trade him when he's healthy. They absolutely
is he someone
should.
that they could move off of? I don't know what the market will be for Sal Perez, but
he's got to play a couple games before getting dealt, unless it's just like one of those nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We're holding him out so he doesn't aggravate it sort of things. But I mean, I don't want to get sold a bill of goods either. I think I want to see a guy play a couple of games, let my scouts see him play a couple of games before I trade for him. But yeah, there's probably 20 teams in baseball that could trade for him right now, and they could use the upgrade.
So you're looking at if you take Sal Perez, you got 2 more years on that contract at about $20 million a year, and then you've got a club option with a $2 million buyout. So really 2 more years, and then if you're not happy with him, over 2 years. So you're buying 2 years at $20 million, and then there is a club option for only 13 at the third year.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's like a 50-50 for a catcher.
Could you imagine him in Great American Ballpark?
That could be well, they don't have any room for him in their.
Well, they would have to trade Stevenson or something like that. It would have to be like, okay, you get our younger guy. We're going to go for, the upgrade. I don't know if the Reds do it, to be honest. But I mean, the Reds have all the room in the world financially to trade for anybody. Votto comes off the books this year. So, I think Ken Griffey Jr. might be the third highest salary on the team right now. I'm not joking. It's kind of like the Bobby Bowe contract. It's just last and last. But I mean, they have nothing on the books going forward. I mean, they have all the room to pick up a contract. They're 2 or 3 or 4 if they want to.
Yeah, but I can't see them picking up a contract of a position player. Can you? I guess if there was one, it could be a catcher. But I mean, they stick with Stevenson. And
why not just steer into your strength? I don't know.
Yeah,
just have this like impenetrable lineup. I no, they do need it, but no. In all seriousness, I mean, obviously they need to trade for some pitching. I gotta say, the starting pitching has been better lately. Brandon Williamson was fine yesterday. Graham Ashcraft has been better since coming back off the IL. Now, do I degree of confidence in that lasting? Not so great. Ben Lively left with an injury last time out. Luke Weaver still got to have his first turn from the All-Star break, and always bet the first inning over against him.
Yeah.
If such a thing exists. But yeah, man, I could see Sal Perez in that ballpark would be fun. I'm just trying to think of other right-handed ballparks that would be good. Fenway would be great for him. But they already have a catcher who's they're pretty happy with right now.
Yeah. Jumping back to the Reds for a minute, they could be in an interesting position where like Matt McLean I feel like is already showing he belongs in the majors, India, De La Cruz. So without me having memorized their prospect list, like they kind of know that their infield positions are locked up.
Kind of. They got to figure it all out. They got more on the way.
That's what I was going to say is the guys who are the more on the way, they could make available.
Yeah. Or,
because they already know Jonathan India is a really good player.
Well, first base is the last thing to decide and that's why Encarnacion-Strand is up now.
Yep.
And that's why like Steer sat out yesterday. He's been slumping too, but they got to figure out, okay, Encarnacion-Strand, do we package him in a deal for a starter, or is he our long-term first baseman? He gets the call. You'd love to see him play in that ballpark. He's been raking the last year and a half, almost two full years. I mean, they really got to figure out if he's a full-time guy, but he's our number 2 guy, by the way, as far as like second half guys to go get, because he's going to play whether he gets traded or stays with the Reds. He's going to play on a regular basis. His bat plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the same thing. I could see the Reds. I don't know. I feel like this year's found money for the Reds. I could see them just doing something really small, like trading for Kyle Hendricks type trade, and then just
Yep, I
saying,
agree.
if we make it, we make it. If we don't, we don't. But we're not giving away any collateral right
I
now.
prepared myself to be underwhelmed at the
And
trade deadline.
and then like I said, like maybe in the off season they part with like a decent infield prospect who now is blocked, and get a pitcher who they'll have under control for a few years, something
Yeah.
like that.
So
I could see them saying, like, we didn't even think this was possible, and we don't think we're ready to go deep in the playoffs. So that being said, like, I guess why couldn't they if they
yeah.
make it?
Well,
You never know.
this past weekend was kind of a little bit of cold water on
Yeah,
them getting swept by the Brewers. I mean,
De La
their
Cruz
chief
had a
rival.
really bad weekend.
Yeah, he did. The Brewers, I mean, Corbin Burns looks back. Freddie Peralta looked good on Saturday.
Yeah,
But the fact here's your tell that they are slumping. They got 3 runs at home off of Adrian Hauser, who went
yeah,
like 5 innings without striking anybody out. It's funny. David Bell got kicked out in the second inning of that game. Home plate umpire, I forget his name, had a really wide strike zone. Both teams were bitching in the first 2 innings. Bell gets kicked out, and Hauser goes 5 innings without a strikeout. And yet the Reds only scored 3 runs. And what they had multiple scoring situations where they couldn't get that insurance run over. Sure enough, the Brewers rallied late, won 4-3 because the Reds bullpen is awful, no good, terrible. Lively, and they did their best to hang on. Lively left after 4 innings in that game. We'll see if he needs another trip to IL. I mean, that could really kind of spur them into doing something. But yeah, I think they are 3 or 4 pitchers away, and I
yeah,
don't think they go out and get either the high end types or the number of pitchers they need. I think the Brewers win this division.
yeah. Speaking of Adrian Hauser, you said it wasn't going well and they only got 3 runs off Adrian Hauser. Without looking it up, guess Adrian Hauser's career ERA. And almost all of his career appearances have been as a starter.
3.95.
There you go, 3.95. Exactly right.
Damn, I just was
Why
going
did
with
I
the Cal
even
Quantrill number there.
why did I even challenge you? But there's another guy. He is very
That was a total wild ass guess too. It
he
was
is
only
very
because of the Cal Quantrill comment you made earlier.
yeah, he is very Cal Quantrill like in that he's not good for fantasy because the strikeout rate's really low and the whip is really high. So he's not good. I'm not telling anyone listening to this to pick up Adrian Hauser. But from a Major League Baseball perspective, this is a guy who can give you 5 innings to start and have an ERA of 4 at the end of the year, which means
Judge Smales told us the world needs ditch diggers too.
yeah,
And it's true. I mean, he's a perfect, like, hey, get it over for a 5-6 innings
teams
guy.
would like Adrian Hauser as their 5th starter.
Yeah,
Maybe
I agree.
And plenty of teams would take him as their 4th.
Reds would take him as a 3rd.
Yeah,
I think. I think so. Hey, we've gone 42 minutes without sharing a commercial note, so we're going to do that now. First, quick plug from our Blue Wire advertisers. Thank you for that. Also, our friends at Home Run Index are one of our sponsors. We thank them for that. We know the weather can impact how far a ball can fly, but we never know what all that heat and humidity or cold air is really doing to the ball. The Home Run Forecast Index gives us an easy way to determine how good or bad the air is for ball flight. The index is calculated by measuring stadium-specific weather conditions and is displayed on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the most unfavorable for good ball flight and 10 indicating the most favorable air. There's a strong correlation between the index and the number of runs scored per game and the number of home runs hit. Games that have the highest index, 10 for the whole game, average over 10 runs and 2.8 homers over the course of the year. An index is created for each game so you can see what it will be in any stadium and how the weather's influence might change over the course of the game, as well as the wind direction. Right now, you can get access to the HRF premium site for only $5 a month and see what the index will look like for every hour of every game. Go to homerunforecast.com right now to sign up. Again, that's homerunforecast.com. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie, and we are just talking all things baseball. We're all over the map today. Endy Rodriguez was one of 2 Pittsburgh Pirates to debut yesterday. I was a little surprised that Henry Davis got the call ahead of him, and Henry Davis isn't even catching. Endy Rodriguez is going to be the primary catcher for the Pirates going forward.
Yes, he is. And do you have much fantasy interest in him. I don't know if I really do. I guess I did. I had more last year at the end of last season. This
right?
season, his minor league numbers are like really blah, like a 268 average and 6 home runs. It's just, I don't know. Now he's tasked with catching. I think I just way rather have Henry Davis, who I know can at least steal a few bases for me and plays every day because he doesn't have to catch.
Yeah.
And
Well,
can maybe focus on his hitting more.
yeah. And that's the thing. I'd prefer Davis over Endy right now. But I definitely that's flip flop from the beginning of the year too. But that said, I mean, sometimes a guy will kind of stagnate at AAA and then
Yeah.
kind of pick it up when he gets the call. I think that I think a lot of people thought there was a chance that Endy had a chance to make the team out of spring training. The way he just was crushing the ball. Now, he only had like 6 games at AAA in 2022. So from a game calling perspective, I think maybe they thought maybe he could use a little bit of work there. And in fairness, he actually started the year at high A last year and blew through double A, only played 31 games there too. So with that in mind, I could see maybe why they kept him a little longer at AAA, and he wasn't crushing it at AAA, but Fred, he also was holding his own too. He just wasn't hitting for a lot of power. The batting eye was good. 36 walks, 47 Ks, making solid contact, just not making enough hard contact. But when your alternative is Austin Hedges, I mean, which was like no contact, give me Endy any day. Maybe they just wanted to make sure he was ready and wasn't going to be overmatched before he got the call.
Yeah, I love when people throw Austin Hedges under the bus. His numbers this year are just like incredible. So 226 on base. His on base is a bad batting average.
Yeah, Austin Nola versus Austin Hedges. Any Austin Barnes, any Austin catcher is bad. Basically, there. I think that's our lesson that we need to take from that. There, it also kind of makes me a little bit concerned as a prospect hound. I getting a little bit worried about Austin Wells on the Yankees now.
There you go.
Another catcher, Austin.
From a fantasy perspective, since they came up almost back to back, would you rather have Endy Rodriguez or Tyler Soderstrom if you were picking one of them up right now?
I think Tyler Soderstrom because he's going to play a little non-catcher.
That was my
but with the caveat that you make sure you get him a qualified catcher already. Because like in the NFBC, he actually doesn't qualify at catcher right now.
Right. So, yeah. So if he qualified at catcher, I guess then, my answer would be the same as you.
I'm confirming that's true. But when I saw him on the waiver wire, he's listed as a first baseman.
I believe you're right that he doesn't qualify there. In Yahoo leagues, he is much more rostered than Endy Rodriguez. So the masses are.
Well, Endy wasn't available to be picked up until next week. So also for.
Oh, sorry. No, I said in Yahoo.
Oh, Yahoo. My bad. I didn't hear you properly.
Picked up anytime. So.
Or I just powered through it. One of the two. I don't know.
Yeah, they. Anyways, I'm with you. If Soderstrom's eligible at catcher, I'll take him. He hasn't done anything of note yet in the majors. Yeah. I'll take him. I did blast Yahoo owners a few days ago and I know there are some keeper leagues which would impact it, but Tyler Soderstrom, like as soon as he got called up, blew past Danny Jansen in ownership percentage, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like Danny Jansen has 40 RBIs this year. He's like top 10 among catchers in home runs, even though he's on the IL for a while. Like, what are you chasing in Tyler Soderstrom that you can't just get Danny Jansen right now? Like I said, I know there's some keeper leagues in Yahoo where people are rostering him for a different reason, but that's not enough to make up the ownership gap. Like I said,
I agree.
His ownership rate blew past Jansen's like immediately, and it's totally the shiny new toy.
It is. I mean, would you rather have Oakland in their ballpark or Toronto in there?
Right.
I mean, track record, no track record. And now in the NFBC, it's even worse because he got the initial first base only qualification. You have to wait till he gets to 10 games at catcher. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe it happens quickly like it did with Francisco Alvarez, but so far it's 1-1 for him.
Yeah. So probably not that quickly. Like it could take to the end of the month.
Yeah.
Longer.
Longer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mid-August even.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point, he's not rosterable. Like if you're talking about Soderstrom as a first baseman in NFBC,
maybe. I mean, if 15-team mixed league, you could still use him as a corner.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess. To me that feels like things have gone pretty bad if I'm using Soderstrom as my corner infielder, even in a 15. I think in one league I picked up Donovan Solano for the week as my corner infielder. I think I'd rather use him than Tyler Soderstrom. At
It's all
least
down to the
Milano's
matchups at
playing
that
every
point,
day. He
right?
hits for average. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. And
Yeah.
whether he's going to get three starts
Yeah.
or 2 starts, really.
Yeah.
Scott Jenstad posed this question to me. You're our resident Jays guy. You mentioned Jansen. How about his counterpart, Alejandro Kirk? Is he a drop?
I think he can. Yeah. I think in 12s. I like the way Alejandro Kirk is playing. There's no way this can work. Like, he's such an incredibly slow runner.
Yep.
And then he's not hitting for any power at all. So he's putting every ball, not every ball, but he's putting so many batted balls on the ground, or at least on a low trajectory. When he does put them in the air, they're not leaving the yard, and he can't beat anything out. And I mean, he's such a slow runner. Like, there's other guys like Brandon Belt, for example, on the Jays, is a slow runner, but nothing like Kirk. Danny Jansen's not a fast runner, but he's nothing like Kirk. So Kirk is such a slow runner. I just think this can't work. Yeah, I think you could totally. So, for example, if you had Kirk, who I also think he's falling into just he's the Jays' number 2 catcher. He DHs a bit, especially he could DH against lefties sometimes because Varsho's so bad against them. But I don't think, and I think one of the Jays, I was looking at what I think the Jays should do at the trade deadline. I think one of their only paths to improvement, or one of their best paths to improvement, might be to find another middle of the order bat. And if they do that pushes Kirk into an even smaller role.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking at the roster, and they need another right-handed bat. They don't have a better right-handed alternative at DH. If you assume that Vladdy and Springer and Bichette and Jansen are all already in the lineup, Merrifield too at their respective positions, which you would, then who do they have? And maybe there's someone in the minors I'm overlooking. Right now, a AAA veteran first baseman would be a better alternative than Kirk as the DH.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I've been looking at obviously what I think the Jays should do at the deadline. The weird thing about the Blue Jays is the reason they're not better is primarily that some of their studs haven't played like studs. Like, Guerrero hasn't been as good as he should be. He's probably 100 points down of what he should be on his OPS. Springer's a decent amount down on what he should be on his OPS. It's like, when you look at who you're going to replace, they're probably not replacing Varsho. He's a really good defender. They traded a lot for him. Kiermaier's been exactly what you want from a number 9 hitter, center fielder, great defense. Chapman's not getting replaced. Merrifield's been one of their better hitters this year. He's not getting replaced. He's versatile in the field.
I tried to trade for Merrifield in the RotoWire staff keeper league, just couldn't get it done. Guy wanted to hold on to him, thinking he's a keeper for next year.
Interesting. I think he's a free agent at the end of this season.
Yeah.
I don't know what the market's going to be for a 35-year-old Whit Merrifield. He'll get a job.
Yeah.
He'll get a contract. I don't know how many keepers you guys can keep, but
a lot. 15.
Okay. I'll be
18-team mixed league with 10-man minor league rosters. Now, a lot of them get activated, so you don't keep all your minor leaguers from year to year, but still, it's just balanced against their salaries. That's the tricky part.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it. I mean, Whit Merrifield's kind of right on the cusp as far as, does he get a contract and an offer from a team that makes him like a regular player, like a starting player on a decent team next year? I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I think he'll play enough next year. He's having a pretty solid season.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Blue Jays' path is probably actually to replace Brandon Belt with a stud who hits cleanup, and then if they want to try to get better, and then make Belt a part-time player. Or they could do the same thing in the rotation but it would have to be a stud. They don't have a total hole in their, especially Hyunjin Ryu's close to coming back and has been doing fine in AAA. So they have they're 5 deep. Kikuchi's their 5th starter right now, or Manoah, depending on how you want to look at it. We'll see how Manoah does tonight.
I was just going to say, tonight's a pretty big night.
Yeah. And then but they could replace either one of those 2 pitchers with Ryu when he's ready to come back. Mm-hmm. So again, if they're going to get a starter, they can't just get Kyle Hendricks, because that's just spinning their wheels. It's different, say, than the Reds situation where you could just use a guy who can give you 5 innings. They have that guy. It's Kikuchi. They're going to have Ryu. He could be that guy. So they need to actually get a really good pitcher, someone you're excited to start in a playoff game, or they need to get a cleanup hitter. And Brandon Belt hasn't been bad, but he's still Brandon Belt. That's probably the spot that they could most easily. Anyways, all of those things push Kirk down the depth chart, and I think that I don't know. I think the Jays missed their window in trying to move Kirk. I think it was last offseason after he had a pretty good year. There's just he
They
has to
moved the
get
wrong
something
catcher.
out. They did. I think now they could get a lot more from Moreno. I think Major League GMs were smart enough to know that Moreno had a lot more. He's a much better athlete, younger, much better athlete. I think he probably has more potential than Kirk, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Kirk might just end up settling into being like a really good contact hitter but is like a number 2 catcher, because even though maybe he has a better year than this year and he hits 250 or 260, but it comes with 6 home runs.
Yeah.
So 5 home runs. So I think you could drop Kirk. So for example, if someone wanted to drop Kirk for Soderstrom, where he's a catcher, or for Endy Rodriguez, I think I don't know if it'll work out, but I could see you doing that and saying from now on, I'm just going to stream the spot.
Bet on the unknown
until I can find someone. I'll start with Endy Rodriguez, and catchers are really cheap now. I saw Soderstrom. Oh, sorry. I've seen catchers recently in the NFBC leagues go for pretty cheap on the waiver wire on Sunday nights. I don't think Rodriguez will be expensive unless he does something really wild.
Most people don't have a whole lot of money left.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. So I think you're going to be able to get Rodriguez for less than $20.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to drop Kirk and say, you know what, if I can get Rodriguez for $10, I'll take him. I'll roll him for a couple weeks. I'll monitor him. I'll monitor what else is out there, and I'll start streaming the spot because I think I can get just as good or better than what I've been getting for Kirk. I don't think Kirk's going to come back and burn you.
Yeah. Question from the audience: do you like Kodai Senga for the second half? For all that's gone wrong with the Mets this year, Senga's been pretty good. The whip isn't great at 126. He's walked 49 batters, but man, give me 122 Ks in 95 innings anytime. I'll take those 122 Ks. I'll take a 3.20 ERA. He's only given up 11 homers. That plays. And I think, yes, I like him a lot for the second half. I think if there's maybe a concern, and I don't even think it's a huge concern, but maybe it's that he wears down for the length of the MLB season compared to that at home. That might be a concern, but honestly, not even that worried about that. I like him. I would trade for him if he is available.
Yeah, I'm fine with him. I don't know if he's someone I go out and like fully target, like you said, just because of that fear of him wearing down. Although that being said, when I talk trade, there aren't usually players that I target. It's usually more figuring out, what I need, what I can give up, whose roster fits what I need and what I can give up. And then if I needed a starting pitcher and that person had Kodai Senga, I would not be afraid to trade for him, rather than me just going out and finding the person in my league who has Kodai Senga and then saying, I got to get him from you.
Yep.
That's not usually how I think about trades, or it's basically never how I think about trades. So, but yeah, if someone lined up for me, and Kodai Senga is probably on some good pitching staffs because he wasn't drafted as an ace or a number 2, and he's given that person a lot of strikeouts. In some leagues, there's probably people with Senga who are doing really well in strikeouts and could part with him. So yeah, I don't have any concerns about him.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good question there. Appreciate you on that. Couple more guys talk about here. I actually streamed Drew Smyly this week because of the 2-step. He got me strikeouts, but not great. And he's really been struggling a little bit lately too. So and that's all right. The question is, Drew Smyly, is he hitting the wall? It's kind of what he does, actually. He does tend to hit walls. That's been one of the problems for him over the course of his career, is that he hasn't been able to go deep into seasons. So Drew Smyly yesterday, gave up the 5 runs on 8 hits, only 1 walk, and 7 Ks over 6 innings.
Yeah, it does seem like Smiley's just kind of running out of gas. Like April ERA 3.21, May ERA 3.09, June 5.81, so far in July 7.90. It just seems like he's never been durable, as you mentioned, but it's hit this year. He has been durable, and maybe his body's just not used to being this durable. He's like, wait a minute, I'm not a 30 start guy. What's going on here? I've pitched for 3.5 months now without a break. So he seems to be kind of running out of steam, and that's a bad one for the Cubs too, because he's someone they could have moved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or could still move, but aren't going to get as much as they could have maybe a month ago when his ERA was in the mid 3s. In fantasy, I have him on 2 or 3 teams. I did not start him anywhere, I think, this week. If I did start him, it would have been on a team that's doing poorly and I had nothing to lose. But I was benching him for middle relievers this week. I just felt like I couldn't take the risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks to PJ for the shout out to RotoWire for rescuing this wayward baseball press user. If you hadn't heard baseball press, I don't think I think they might have shut down. I don't think they had a big announcement about it, but we do have a MLB lineups page. We think it's pretty good. And you guys can check it out. If you don't already subscribe to RotoWire, we do a trial. We do have a free trial. It's you just go to rotowire.com/pod. If you're streaming with us right now, you can see it. And yeah, I'm going to post the link to the lineups page. But also, we got a special thing going on in July. If you go get a free trial, it's a free 2-day free trial. No credit card at all is required. And if you do get a free trial with us, we're going to donate $1 to Fantasy Cares. It's the same organization that Scott Fishbowl, Scott Fish has created to help buy toys for kids at Christmas, things of that nature. It's his organization. It's great stuff. So go to rotowire.com/pod, and you can get the free trial and a peek behind the paywall, and then go check out our lineups page, which right now I posted it in our Yahoo page right now. If you're following along on Yahoo, it's rotowire.com/baseball/daily-lineups.php. But just go to the free trial and you can go navigate from there. We have it prominently linked all over the place there, so you guys can check that out. But yeah, we hope you want to check that out. One other thing I want to mention is I've got some Sonny Gray in my life, and he had a bad start before the All-Star break, and he had another rough one yesterday as well out in Seattle.
Yeah, so you wonder if this is another guy maybe who's running out of steam a little bit.
Yep,
I could say a lot of similar things to Drew Smyly, although I don't think it was. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit. I was going to say I don't think of his past as quite as checkered as Drew Smyly's, but the more I look at his player page, it's not too far off.
He's I'm not better than that, but yeah,
I'm concerned. The walks are high the last couple starts. I'm not totally out. One of the things I noticed when I was doing some schedule watching over the All-Star break, and I've got a trade article coming out on Yahoo tomorrow that touches on this, is that the Twins have a very favorable schedule for pitchers coming up over the next, say 6 weeks to 2 months. They just have a lot of divisional games. And then I think they've got the A's in there too. I think they just had the Mariners. I think they might have the Mariners again. But they have a lot of games against bottom 10 lineups. So it's well laid out for guys like Gray and the rest of that rotation to have plenty of successful starts. So for that reason, I think if I had Gray, I might hold and cross my fingers that it was just 2 unlucky starts.
Yeah. Uncle Ted, I'm going to do one more player. Talks about Dakota Hudson as the Cardinal pitcher I'd want to trade for the most. I'm not seeing it. First of all, the innings aren't there. 3 1/3 in his last time out, and that's the most he's gone so far this year. At AAA this year, 6 ERA, 185 whip. Okay, so fine. Maybe he's working his way back from injury, but still. Last year, full season, 445, 145. He's had one good year ERA wise in his career, one good year, 2 good years with 335 ERA in 2019. But that came with a 141 whip. He's never been a dominant pitcher, never misses bats. I'm not in on Dakota Hudson.
No, I actually have Dakota Hudson on my Tout Wars draft and hold team. I did not put him in the lineup this week, even though he has 2 starts. Which tells you, I took him in round 48 or something like that. I probably will never use him. We'll see. Because the Cardinals are clearing out rotation, space, probably Jordan Montgomery at the very least is on the move. I think Hudson maybe could just be in a losing team's rotation down the stretch, which I guess is something in NL only. He gets a ton of ground balls. He doesn't get any strikeouts. So you just cross your fingers. He's had stretches where he's got enough ground balls, right? 2019, happy fun ball year. Well, for Dakota Hudson and all his ground balls, he had a 335 ERA. Yep. So he still gave up 22 homers, even with the happy fun ball. But because he gets so many ground balls, he was able to, be one of the pitchers who to some degree survive that. Career ERA 356. So I get it where he's coming from, but the strikeout rate is just so bad. I just don't see any fantasy potential there. Like I said, I didn't pick him up. He could get stretched out to the point where he gives the Cardinals 5 innings consistently, 5-6 innings of ground balls and 2 strikeouts. And if you want to, on a losing team, roll the dice that not enough of those ground balls come in to score, and you get your 2 strikeouts and maybe you get a win. Go for it. I think I'd rather just play a middle reliever. That actually, Dakota Hudson gives me a nice segue to Quinn Priester, who made his major league debut last night and is I think, and generated some interest. He's got a little bit of Dakota Hudson type look to me, just watching that game. And I'm not getting into like pitch mix and all those things. Lots of ground balls, not a lot of strikeouts. At least that's how his debut went. A lot of ground balls, not a lot of strikeouts, not a high velocity pitcher. His cutter was at 91. His slider was at 85.
He was perfect through 3 yesterday, but then the next 2
and all ground balls. It was either all ground balls or pretty close.
Yeah, in the fourth inning, the dam broke open too. I mean, the 6th inning, the dam broke open with 4 runs in the 6th too. So, again, this is one of those guys where, I would prefer a guy that misses bats because then, you said all ground balls. Ground balls are fine if you have a good defense, but occasionally need to miss bats, and I don't think the Pirates especially have a strong defense, so that's part of the problem.
Yeah, and maybe ground balls on the Braves, and you get a lot of run support, and you're like a high whip, mediocre ERA guy who gets some wins.
Yeah,
ground balls, a lot of ground balls on a losing team. Your whip's probably going to be high. Like unless you're an elite control guy, your whip's probably going to be high, and then who knows on your ERA, and you're probably not going to get a lot of wins.
Yeah, so, Priester's got some pedigree. He was a first-round pick in 2019, so he did have an oblique injury last year that slowed him down a little bit. Strikeout rate kind of started to dip as he went higher up in the minors. That does happen a lot. I think this is a building year. I don't think the story is fully written on him, but I also do wonder about his ultimate upside too.
Yeah, I think there's a really good sentence about Priester right at the top of his Fangraphs page. It says, "Scouts like Priester, pitch data does not."
Yeah.
I'm looking at the pitch data saying, like, what's the hype around this guy? But like you said, 1st-round pick, scouts do like him.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And I get that ground balls are good. Like if he can combine the ground balls with a better strikeout rate, like a decent strikeout rate in the minors or in the majors once he gets some more starts under his belt, then sure. But anyways, his first start was very Dakota Hudson-like.
Yeah. And you got to remember 2 things about pitchers that don't miss bats. I mean, one, strikeouts portend future success. I mean, there's a strong correlation. The higher strikeouts you get more often than not, you got better ratios, better chances of winning. But 2, strikeouts are a category for us. It's, either in roto leagues or in points leagues. I mean, they matter. So a lack of them or a staff full of pitchers that don't have them is a problem. I mean, look at the Cubs. Is an example of that. They haven't had a lot of pitchers that miss bats. You don't want to have only, that try to miss bats to the exclusion of getting outs, but at the same time, you need strikeouts. They're the bread of life.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I think, and that's where I think guys like Dakota Hudson, like they've just proven by now they can't do it.
Yeah, they have their moments. They have, and they can look really good for a while, but they're beholden to 2 different things. 1, defense. 2, a little, luck, and 3, an opposing lineup that can wait him out a little bit or square him up, because there will be days where he gets squared up, and that's the problem. All right. I think we can end it on that note there. Good stuff, everybody. Appreciate everybody jumping in on the chat there. As always, we love having the robust discussion. Big thanks to everybody listening in. Coming up tomorrow, James Anderson going to talk a lot about the first-year player draft, some of the players involved there. And he's got updated prospect rankings coming up soon. Mid-July prospect rankings update coming up really soon on RotoWire. So, again, you want to see that? Check out rotowire.com/pod. Good time to do that. Do yourself some good checking out the prospects, as well as doing some good for others because for every free trial at rotowire.com/pod, we'll donate $1 to Fantasy Care. So thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.